couple of minutes.
Okay. We'll give it a couple. I'll pause the recording again.
Yeah, because I think
Okay, so we are live. Good evening, everyone. Welcome. For those of you that don't already know me, I'm Kim Iozzi, the Executive Director of Dress for Success Northern New Jersey. And we have with me tonight my co-host, Willa Edgerton Schisler, who is the CEO of Symphony Strategies and our Steps to Success Coordinator and our Inclusion Task Force volunteer. We would love to thank each of you for supporting Allies for Change and the conversations that we've had so far. And we are so excited to have you participate in this Thursday night's Fireside Chat. Our theme is supporting equity and inclusion in the midst of adversity. Let me begin by introducing our wonderful panelists for this evening's conversation. First, we have Patricia Lee, or Patty, right? If Patty's good. She is the founder of PAL Coaching and Consulting and has more than 25 years of value-based progressive human resources experience in the travel, manufacturing, and financial services industry. Next, we have Lynn Shaber, who is the founder of Potential Within. She's been a professional coach since 2003 and is passionate about helping others reach their full potential. And last but not least, Reverend Melissa Hall, who is a former registered nurse and first female rector of the Episcopal Church of St. James in Upper Montclair. Reverend Melissa has also opened her doors to Dress for Success, and we are partnering with her to have a satellite location there in Upper Montclair. So welcome. Thank you for taking the time to join us this evening. In light of the continuing acts of homophobia and violence against the LGBTQ community, this year's theme is The Fight Continues, which reflects the multitude of battles that have been fought throughout the country. The many ongoing fights, an alarming murder rate for trans people of color, and the rights of the LGBTQ community being questioned at the level of the Supreme Court. We want to state tonight on this webinar that we as an organization condemn the violence and hatred directed at the LGBTQ communities. Each of you that are here tonight bring a diverse perspective to our topic. And before we get into learning how we can be allies for change, I guess we just want to open the conversation, and I will turn it to you, Willa.
all right, thank you. Yes, it's a powerful conversation we want to have tonight. And we want to start off with, and I'll with any one of you can jump in about what parallels do you see between what's happening today in this country and what has happened in periods in the past when people have turned against the LGBTQ community. Because I remember reading and learning about the Stonewall police raid. And now we've moved and thinking that things are moving forward. We then have the post shooting, which was 5 years ago, where we lost 49 innocent people and 53 people are still injured. So I want to hear from you as to what things have you seen plus and minus in that group. And I'll start off with Patty.
All right, thank you. And thanks, Will. And, again, Kimberly, it goes without saying, thanks for hosting this and for everything that you and the entire team at Dress for Success does. It's remarkable and it's a heartfelt mission. And I really appreciate and support you guys so much. It's interesting. It seems like there always needs to be an enemy. It's the Blacks, Muslims, gays, Asians. There's always a conflict. There's always a conflict that in some ways brings people together. And in other ways, in strange ways, it divides us as well. In the LGBTQ community, I think we've made significant strides. I mean, I have been with my wife now for 32 years. We're married. We own our home. Our families love us. We have successful careers. So there has been significant progressive movement not only in laws, but as well as, society and accepting us, et cetera. And there's always room for improvement, always. The Equality Act has passed in 26 states. So that means that there are still places in the United States that we, quite honestly, don't travel and will never live. That's limiting to our ability to get up and get around or follow jobs. And there's certain countries that there's no way that we would ever travel to. And then I think, Kimberly, you mentioned it. When I look at the trans community, I mean, my heart just crumbles. There are more hate crimes in year 2021 than ever recorded before. So, I think it's an interesting balance, Willa. I mean, you look historically and you see all the major, milestones of disasters we've had, but within that, we've also made progress. Mm-hmm. But then as we sit here today, we still have a long ways to go. And you have to have that optimism. You have to have that hope.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's resonates with a lot of groups, right? We've made some progress, but there's still a lot of work to do that we don't even have to have. We'll know that it works when we don't have conversations like this, right?
That's correct.
That's when we know. When
That's
there's
correct.
no need for a diversity practitioner, that's when we know, right? Lynn, what are your thoughts? What do you think about what's?
Yeah, so I come from a very personal experience from the perspective of I have a child that identifies as gender neutral. First came out as lesbian, in the last couple of years has identified as gender neutral. So if I say daughter sometimes and they and them sometimes, that's because I'm still getting used to that pronoun and vernacular. It's just not that easy to do. They are 44 years old. And to Patty's point, it's so true that they live in the Boston area, and they came out before they moved to the Boston area, and then they were up there and said to me, well, there's certain places I won't ride on the subway, they call it the T, I think, up there, because it's uncomfortable or maybe even dangerous. So to hear that as a parent is a little frightening and disconcerting. And it's been my experience that when it becomes personal, it changes your whole perspective on things. It's not about that other person or that other type of person and you. It's like, this is my child. This is someone who I love. And then when you start to look back and say, oh, well, all right, I knew this person, and it may not have been as, they may not have come out and said, oh, I'm gay, but there was a gay couple living across the street from my childhood home when I was growing up. And they were fairly accepted within the neighborhood. I'm sure they probably dealt with some prejudice, but I wasn't as aware of it. So I do think actually Dr. Livingston talked about this in the conversation we were having around when you get to know people, then you understand there's so much more that's the same about us than there is different. And I think it's really important to continue to fight for the rights that every individual should be able to appreciate. I remember when they made it legal to get married in Massachusetts, and my daughter had a girlfriend who became her wife at the time, and they were like standing in line when they first opened up so that they could get licensed, because it was such a huge deal. Her ex-wife was very big advocate on the college campus for them. So key moments.
All right, thank you for sharing that. We're going to talk to you more about that as we continue in this conversation, Lynn, because I know, having a family member come out, it was in my family, it was very different, and a lot of different emotions came through. But before we get into that conversation, Reverend Melissa, what do you see about the changes that have happened earlier and now today in acceptance?
Yeah, I certainly resonate with Patty and Lynn, but you know, I've lived long enough. I mean, I know I'm attractive, but I'm a lot older than I look, you know, so I've lived in a span of history and in my life that I never thought, first of all, that I would be putting myself forward as a gay person to talk about my life. I never thought that I would have the ability to be married. Never thought I would have the ability to be a parent. None of that. I'm still amazed at what's happened. That when the whole world shifted, I'm amazed at it. But having said that, this idea of safety is always preying on my mind. Getting of an age, my wife and I are going to be celebrating our 40th anniversary this year. Thank you. Yeah, we've endured each other. It's been great. It's been great. But this idea of, well, where do we retire to? Well, we can't retire to, well, can we retire to, you know, we love this show on TV about these wonderful people down in Mississippi that build these houses and it costs you $1.280 to have a house. Well, we could go buy a house there. No, we can't live there. This idea of having to, you know, isolate ourselves to particular areas because we don't feel safe. And it's not imagined, it's a true thing. The idea of personal safety, even so much as being invited to somebody's home or to an event where you're not known or you're not sure of the people, you know, that idea of safety, you do not reveal that you are lesbian or gay or trans. You don't reveal that until you know you're safe. It's an awful feeling to walk in and right away am I safe to be who I am, or do I have to protect and closet myself? You know, and I live in a paradox. I am a priest in the Episcopal Church, and it's an amazing church. But the church religion as an entity has not been and continues not to be kind to gay and lesbian transgender people. And I'm making a general statement about religion across the board. Some are better than others. Some have done irrevocable harm to people because of their sexuality or their sexual orientation or gender orientation. And it continues to happen. And here I am, you know, advocating, you know, that I live and I work and my life is about loving my neighbor, taking care of my neighbor, loving others, taking care of others. But on the other hand, I'm part of a bigger body that has not been always kind and has not always seen gay and lesbian transgender people as their neighbor. I have never been married in the Episcopal Church. Here you go. We're together 40 years. We've done everything you can do. We've done the parenting. We've done the partnering. Then we did the civil union. We did all of these things. We had the church blessing, but I could never be married in my church because my church did not see marriage between same-sex people as legitimate. It was a man and a woman. So finally, Fran and I went to New York City because we have a daughter. Went to New York City and was married in front of the clerk in New York City, who was lovely, and could not be married in my own church. I had at that point probably done 200 weddings myself for other people. Could not be married in my church. Finally, the church relented and changed its approach. Was it because God spoke to the church and said, this is wrong? No, it's because the Supreme Court and America, praise God, shifted everything. And it was the culture that pushed the church. And somehow that seems wrong to me. It seems like the church is supposed to be the moral north, true north, right? But we weren't. We waited to see when it was comfortable and when it was okay. And that's when my church changed. After I had not been married in the church, I will not get married in my church because I feel as if I am married and I did all the things I need to be married. So I do not need my church, which I love, to legitimize what is already apparent to my partner and I. So I won't do it. I'm proud that I was married.
Just for principle's sake.
You bet. I am not doing it. People want to have these weddings for me. We won't do it. So
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So
Thank you.
I'm going to turn it over to you to kind of let's dive deeper into this conversation.
Yep. So Reverend Melissa, to continue with you, first of all, congratulations to you and Fran. I got an email from Fran earlier and I was like, I'm so excited to meet you because now it's like the whole picture, you know? So
She's amazing.
I'm thrilled for that. So you've shared a little bit about what your journey's been like and your experience. What challenges have you faced with family, friends, and colleagues? We know a little bit now with your workplace, what you've gone through, but what's your journey been like, and who were your supporters going through that?
Sure. You know, it's a hard question to answer because there are people who have loved us and supported us, but not understood exactly the things they were saying to us, which they thought was being kind and was in fact very hurtful. You know, when people say to me, well, everything's okay now because you're able to get married, like, it's like, oh yeah, now I can get married. Well, you know, and that sense, well, everything's okay now that you're gay. Nope. Here's the thing you hear, oh, nobody cares you're gay. And I'm like, oh, please do care that I'm gay. Please do not overlook what I've had to come through for my whole life. Don't be complacent in thinking everything is okay. And I think we got smacked in the face with that, with the Black Lives Matter and the terrible death of George Floyd, that all of America is walking around thinking everything's fine, we're all singing Kumbaya, right? It wasn't, because we refused to look at it. We refused to, we wanted
That
to.
you brought up a good point, because I think when people, we had discussed this with unconscious bias earlier in the year, and when we said, you know, when people say, I don't see color, and it's like, you know, that in itself is not right. You have to see color. You have to accept difference and change and embrace it, understand it and embrace it. And you're saying very much the same thing with what you're going through.
Right. The other challenge, of course, with family is we have a wonderful daughter who's now 24, but that's a lot of pressure for kids. You know, they love their parents, they love them, but they are subjected to a lot of pressure. You're dragging your children out of the closet because they have, you know, same-sex parents, and they have to endure a lot of that. And that's a hard thing to deal with, and to make sure that your child is safe, because what will happen is if someone shames them, they will not come home and tell you they have been shamed because they don't want to hurt you. Patty's nodding, you get it, right? Yeah, you've been there. So, and that's a tough thing, to keep your equilibrium, keep your child feeling proud of who they are, but also understanding that they are subjected to incredible pressure as well with same-sex parents or transgender parents.
Right. Thank you. So Lynn, I'm gonna bring it over to you, because, you know, as a parent, when your child came out, I am sure that it was not easy. And I kind of just wanted to have you share what your experience and what your journey has been like, you know, in terms of your family, your colleagues, like what did that look like for you?
Yes, thank you, Kim. So our child came out when she was in college. It was in the late 1990s. I was driving a car when she told me. Typically, that's when we do those kinds of difficult things sometimes. I already knew that they were planning to be a teacher in the Boston area. And I was like, is that going to be a problem for you, that if you let people know that then parents won't want you to teach their kids? And she's like, oh no, up in the Boston area, half the people that teach are gay. So some of my prejudice immediately came out, and, you know, it wasn't necessarily this kumbaya experience of, oh, I said, oh, I love you. And of course I did say those things, but I also said some of these other things that I look back and say, how could I have said something so stupid like that? I had a best friend whose daughter had recently come out as a lesbian. And so when I told her, she was like, oh, now we have this connection because we both have children that are gay. There's a loss there, because if you have a certain expectation of, oh, my daughter's going to get married and walk down the aisle and all this other kind of stuff, which actually she still did. She just did it with a woman. So there wasn't really that loss. But at the time, you have this picture of what it's going to be like, and now you've got to shift that picture and you have to adjust to that. That's just part of the normal process in a lot of ways. there was another point I wanted to make. We had to tell our parents that our daughter had come out as gay, and that was probably one of the more difficult conversations that we had to have. All our nobody like said, I won't talk to her anymore, or I won't do it, but there were some that were not really very accepting of the whole idea and would just sort of ignore it, ignore the topic, I would say. But I think overall, I mean, I can still see it today. Sometimes, you're talking with friends and they say something and they don't remember, oh, that's right, we have a child that's gay. And so they say something, and oftentimes what you just do is you get quiet, or you might share your point of view about that, depending on how you're feeling, how long you've known the person, and whether it makes sense. Sometimes when you know them longer, it's harder to do it, because it's like, do I really want to like stir the pot here and get them all upset, and let me just sort of let it go. But I think I've grown from it. I think our family's grown from it. And I think I'm grateful for the opportunity to have a child that I can help support, and in a world that doesn't always accept who they are.
Makes sense. Okay, then Patty, it's up to you now. Can you share with us what your journey has looked like, your experience, and what challenge you faced, if you faced any, with your friends, your colleagues, your corporate space that you were in? What does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm going to talk a little bit of, actually, in reflection of some of what Reverend Melissa and Lynn has said, and we might share our out stories a little later, because everybody has one. But what's interesting is you can hear the shame in Reverend Melissa and Lynn's voice. I mean, you can hear how hurt they are. And we eventually find joy. We eventually find the right path for ourselves. But boy, it's one heck of a journey to get there. Mm-hmm. I've been very fortunate. First of all, I think I'm younger than Reverend Melissa, so thank you, because you guys charged the way. You were there. You fought for us. My journey was a little, I guess, a little simpler. I was very lucky and very fortunate. I have no horror stories, right? I mean, I'm a very, very loving and supportive family. Every single memory I have from like kindergarten, I crushed on my teacher. I mean, every single memory I have, I was gay. Right. And that's actually not what bothers you. It's that knowing that being gay is different, and it's the difference that erodes at you. Being different is a more powerful negative experience, I believe, than being gay, because it's disruptive as a child. I mean, you're trying to grow up, you're trying to socialize, you're trying to mature, you're trying to be liked, and you just don't fit in. You just don't fit in. You're not doing what when I was growing up, 98% of all the other kids in school are doing. And so what you're spending your time doing is reconciling inside yourself and trying to figure out, how does this work? How does this work? For me, it was in the late 70s, early 80s, late 80s. I mean, being gay was equal to having AIDS. Right. So if you were gay, you had AIDS. And so here I am thinking, I'm gay. How am I going to get it? What does that mean to me? Is being gay, does that make you have it? It's just right. A young child kind of trying to figure this whole thing out. But I did have a mom and a dad and a brother, and I had continuous support, not the support that you see today, to be quite frank with you. I mean, kids today, they, I believe, are asking the right questions. They're much more out. I see Gen Z and Gen Y, and they are demanding. They are unapologetically living their lives. God bless them. I wish I had that much courage when I was their age. Yeah.
That's great.
Um, sorry, I got a little teary-eyed listening to these stories because I think about family members who have come out. And that's where I'd like to take this conversation now. And, you know, we live in a society where being straight and cisgendered is the default. And anything outside of that, to your point, Patty, is different. Talk to us, and I'll lead off back to you, Patty, since you mentioned it. What might a person emotionally go through when we talk about coming out? Because we know, okay, yeah, I remember when my family member told me that they were gay. But it's not just coming out to one person. It's, I think, what Lynn and Reverend Melissa and you're kind of talking about. It's an experience and it doesn't stop. So can you kind of kick us off in that conversation, Patty?
Yeah. Wow. Trying to think where to start here. First of all, you know, it's a really great question, right? Because not everybody has to come out, right? Only those individuals that have what I call invisible difference have to come out, right? If you have an invisible disability, if you're gay, you actually have to go through a process to let people know. And what I think is interesting is that parents don't ask their kids if they're straight. They assume they're straight, and then we have to go through a process to uncover or process for the gay child or the gay parent, or the, you know, whomever to come out. I was lucky in the fact that I never lied. I can say to this day, I never lied. But in that is a hard truth but I didn't tell the whole truth either. You kind of cover up, you know, you might have heard the term covering, right? So you avoid questions, you deflect questions, you don't go to certain places because you don't want to be put into awkward situations. But you know, when I was in college, that was my experience, really, truly identifying as gay. And then a bit later on, I was 28 years old. I remember it was like as yesterday. My mom and I was sitting in a restaurant in Ridgewood, New Jersey. I don't know if it's there anymore. It was called like the White House or something. It was a Russian restaurant. And we're sitting there, table for two. And she just said, "Are you gay?" And I said, yes. I was going to be moving in with a woman who's now my wife at the time. And she just started crying. And I said to her, "Mom, I'm happy. I'm successful. I have a great job. I have somebody I love. I have a college education. I mean, I have all the things that a person's supposed to have at this point in time. You know, what's going on here?" She goes, "Oh, you're never going to have that fairy tale wedding." I'm like, "Oh, okay." All right. You know, maybe someday I will, but maybe I won't. But that's what it came down to for her. That's the way she expressed her disappointment, her frustration, her fear, her hurt, her anger, you know, whatever she was going through. And then I talked with my brother, and then I talked with my dad, then I talked with my boss, and then I talked with, and to your point, you know, then I have to talk to every single person that was important in my life so that they know it from me. And it's not that they hear it from somebody else. They have to hear it from me, and then you have to make a list and you have to check it off. I mean, it becomes like an unbelievable process. To this day, my family and friends and colleagues, I mean, they're my strongest supporters. You know, I think there's one other thing I just want to insert here that it's going to take me a half a second, but please bear with me. And we've all kind of gone to this in one way or the other already on this call. I think there's another level of confusion in today's world on the coming out process. And that's the language we use. And so gender expression, gender identity, sexual identity is an ever-changing, ever-evolving thing in today's world. And I think if we were to fully talk about the LGBTQIAS2AA plus community, you all are going to just fall over and say, "I don't get it, I'm out." Like, I just forget it. There's no way I'm ever going to understand all of this, right? It's hard. it's hard for folks to understand. It's hard for allies. It's hard for people in our own community to understand and navigate, what's going on in this world. So I just wanted to take a half a second and give all of you a little bit of information. The word queer, back in the 80s, in the 70s, it was a derogatory term. It's coming back. Gen Z, Gen X, that's Gen Z, Gen Y. That's what they're using now, and it's the umbrella term for all of these things. But the quick and easy is lesbian, gay, bisexual. That's the LGBT. T can either be transsexual, transgender, or what you might hear these days is called two-spirited. It's a Native American term that talks about how, individuals sometimes are two-spirited, or the yin yang, right? Q is queer or questioning. I is intersexual. P is pansexual. A is asexual or ally. And then you always throw a plus on it, because if you didn't capture everything in that, you got the plus, and that means anybody that I inappropriately or unfortunately, disregarded or didn't include, what have you. So it's a very, very long way for me to say it's a long and arduous process. And what I think Reverend Melissa alluded to earlier, it never stops. Every day I have to think about whether or not it's an appropriate time for me to come out to somebody who may or may not know me, because they may or may not know me in the context of being gay, or they may or may not know me at all. And so coming out is, everybody has their first time story, but then I don't know if it's ever going to end for me personally. When does it end?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for the education with all the letters. And that word queer, I'm old school, and I have problems saying that.
I am too. Yeah.
That was always considered so negative. And so I'm very protective of the language that I use to make sure that I'm inclusive and not making assumptions. Thank you for your story, Patricia. Thank you for sharing that. Lynn, you had alluded to your conversation with your daughter in the car about the coming out process for her. How the emotions that you as the parent, with outside of talking to your daughter, the coming out or with everybody, how has that been within your circle?
Yeah. So 2 points. One is, Patty, to your point about the wedding fantasy. When I think about that, and after you relayed that, I think the underlying feeling with all of that is that ultimately what a parent is thinking is, oh, how is this going to affect my child? There's fear around how the rest of the world is going to treat someone that you love unconditionally. And so it comes out as sort of this wedding thing, but it's really more about, oh, people are going to look at my child as different. I just want them to be happy, and I just want them to fit in somewhere. But you don't realize that right away. The other thing is I love your description of all those letters, because it does get really confusing. And it's been a real process for my husband and I, particularly our sons, around learning more about this from a lot of different sources, especially because gender identity and sexual identity and how it can be different, and just our child teaching us more about this, but also learning it from other sources. So there's a education process that's ongoing and requires additional acceptance in a way that can get in the way of things. The other thing is, it's very interesting because then you go, oh my gosh, so-and-so, like my husband's uncle was gay, but never, ever came out. But when you look back at his story and his history, it's very obvious. I have a cousin who's the same age as me who did come out as gay, but it was probably in a time when it was more difficult. And I have a great nephew who's 15, 16 years old, who just came out as gay in the state that could be a little questionable about coming out, but has very supportive parents, has brought it, it's on Facebook and everything, and and really share their support for him. But still, it was a process. I'm not aware of the details, but in a way, you wish they didn't have to go through that.
And the fear of somebody you love and their safety. And what happens, I'm surrounded by a family of love, but the community and the places where we live and work may not be.
Yeah.
As supportive.
And
Yeah.
it's not just physical safety, it's the little hurts. It's the,
For real,
right? It's the
micro,
psychological safety. Yeah, those little,
micro experiences, I call them.
yeah,
Yeah, and you know, what's interesting too in that, this psychological safety thing is that the courage that it takes for someone to come out.
Yeah.
And the disappoint, you know, nobody wants to disappoint their parents. Nobody wants to disappoint their boss, their friends. And yet we carry this burden that coming out is going to be a disappointment.
Mhm.
Coming out is not a, oh, yay, let's go have a party process. I mean, I've not come across anyone who's had, I've never heard of a positive coming out story. That's what I'm saying, right? It's always negative. So you know it's going to be negative. You know you're going to hurt somebody. You know you're going to disappoint somebody. You know you're going to create shame in the family. Okay, so now let's go do it. And then you wonder why so many people don't.
Right.
Because it's probably the hardest, most courageous thing that you do in your life.
Yeah, you know, Patty, you're exactly right. It is fraught with all so many emotions, you know, your own terror. When you come out to your parents, the first reaction most parents have is, what did I do wrong? Or is this my fault? I don't care what generation you're in. And Lynn, you're a remarkable woman. And I got to tell you, your child is lucky to have you. Because when we come out, we drag our families out. You're out now, you know, and we'll go off on our way, and you have to deal with the family and the friends and the, you know, going to a party and hearing somebody make a homophobic joke, and you're standing there saying, do I pick my fights? Do I say something? Am I being unfair to my child? Am I betraying my child by not saying something? What do I do? You know, that's a tough place for any parent to be put in. So when we come out, you come out too, and you don't always have the skills or the time to prepare for it. You don't. And you know, and our worry when I came out certainly was, you know, two things: the idea of secrets and telling a story that is not true. And I'm careful not to say that you know, you're a liar when you don't tell the truth. Because being gay, you're not lying, you are trying to self-preserve, but you are not telling your real truth. So you do a whole lifetime of creating this story for your friends, your family, people who are close to you. That is not true. And now you come out, and now you have to go tell them, to say them, my whole life I didn't tell the truth. It's a very tough place to be in. To have to undo all those stories, you know, and then to remember, wait a minute, what story, what's the story here? You know, what story did I tell? What, you know, who did I tell this? It's very, very tough. And that idea of the death of the child expected, that's what it is. A parent has an expectation of a child idealized, and that you, when you come out, you take that child away. Mother and father, the wedding, you know, the this, the that, the fear that there'll be no grandchildren. I mean, that's all changed, but that child that child goes away, that child dies essentially for that parent. And the new relationship has to be made. And that is really, and that is for transgender children, that couldn't be more than the case. I mean, this, and, you know, being gay, is to me a walk in the park for what my trans brothers and sisters have to go. A walk in the park,
Right.
you know, because first of all, to get your head wrapped around sexual identity and gender identity, it's two different things, and it gets enmeshed and confused, and it gets sexualized in a way that, you know, it's impossible to unwrap. So being gay, and don't call me queer. Thank you, Willa. No, we're going outside. You're gonna get whooping, okay? Don't call me queer. And I appreciate young people who can freely use that. I mean, I'm a fossil. These kids are amazing. You know, they'll tell you 10 years old, I'm gay. And I'm like, well, power to you, child. And their parents are like, my child's gay. And I'm like, oh my God, there's grace. There's grace. This is an amazing thing because, first of all, if I told my mother I was gay at 10, she would know what I was talking about. And then I would have been airborne, you don't, that's not what you do. It is so different now. And it's amazing.
I've learned so much tonight. And, I think one of the things I never understood that you come out over and over and over and what that's like. I think that in my mind, you do it once and you're done and you walk away and everybody knows. And to understand, I think for us as an organization, while we're supporting women in the workforce and things, that to understand that added pressure and that added stress. Before we take any questions, I want to know from each of you what you think we can do to be better allies, better support systems for the women that we serve, the women that serve them as volunteers. What can we do as an organization to help that ease that process for them and be a support system for them?
I think for me, and it's very simple, is asking people their story and sitting quietly and listening to the story and then say thank you. That's all. Letting them tell the story without judgment, without that they can safely tell you, this is who I am. That's the place to start. That they don't have to put up a defense mechanism right away or weave a story so that you take them in, to ask them the story and accept it and take it and don't judge it and not too many questions. Just, I think that's a great place to start. I think once you can see me, then it's hard to hate me. You can hate me as an object, but once you see me and know my story, it's hard to hate me. It's hard to hold that hate. So I would say something very simple as that. I mean, Patty and I came out tonight. We came out in front of you. Lynn came out tonight. I mean, and you listened to our stories. And, that might not seem like a big deal to you, but the three of us are sweating in our seats, correct? Right?
Yes, we are.
Yes, we are. It's like, okay, all right.
I'll build on that. I mean, when it's not about coming to a place of agreement, because you might not ever agree with who I am or what I represent or how I live my life, but it's about acceptance. And, human beings are the only animal on the planet that can have two opposing views at the same time. I could disagree with you and accept you at the same time. And, LGBTQ plus, they are your neighbors, they are your teachers, they are your colleagues, they're your hairdressers, they're your doctors, they're your lawyers, they're your priests. And so when I'm interacting with people, as you guys know, I have a coaching practice. I have 4 letters and I say to folks, be sure. SHUR. S. See people for the wonderful people they are. They're just people. I'm just a person. H. Hear what they say, hear what they do without judgment. So see me, hear me, you understand me, understand my values and my perspectives. Again, you don't have to agree with me, but just understand me. And finally, receive me. Receive LGBT into your hearts and into your communities. The thing that I think every single one of you could do all the time, vote. I'm just saying that, vote. I'll say it again, vote. Because as we change as social change happens, usually it creates judicial change. But that doesn't always happen just miraculously. We have to use our voices, we have to vote, we have to be out there. I mean, the recent decision by the US Department of Education that says that sexual orientation and trans people are also protected by Title IX. I mean, that was monumental for the girls and the boys who are in school right now, trying to have equal rights. The fact that I got married, that Reverend Melissa got married, that was voted in. And so, yeah, vote.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I would say programs like this, Kim, are really powerful and important, and opportunities to educate and hear from people, but for the support, the family that are, or whoever knows someone personally who's come out as gay or has not come out as gay. It's a journey for them to understand, and the acceptance can take a long time sometimes for some people. And so, but giving them the opportunity and the space to learn more can really help them to really accept it a little bit better. And maybe have to just accept that they're not going to get there all the way. And as long as they're not being cruel and mean or hurtful, they've, to Patty's point, you can have two different points of view. And so we have to accept that in others too.
I want to just add before we move to questions about Pride Month. And I know, Patty, you said a key word about acceptance. You know, because my buzzword that I can't stand is tolerance, right? It's about acceptance of people. And I think about the intersectionality within the community of all people trying to be accepted. And so we're dealing with race, we're dealing with culture, we're dealing with community. It's heavy lifting. So Pride Month means what to you this year? I'll start with Reverend Melissa.
I love Pride Month. And Gay Pride Parade in New York City has always been a joy for me. Because to see people in their true selves, just out having a good time.
Yep.
No issues, just having a good time. I do have a problem this year because the police, the gay police have been uninvited to walk in the parade this year. Now there's lots of problems with police culture in this country. There is no doubt, and there's a lot that has to be done. However, that my own community would turn around, you know, and oppress a group of folks because they belong to a particular group is very tough for me. Knowing how brave and courageous, you want to have a hard time, try being a gay cop. Gay cop. Whoa, the courage that talk about a coming out. And I've always respected that. And I can, in my mind, can hold, as Patty said, I can hold the two opinions about police culture and violence in police culture and racism in police, and that has to be dealt with. But on the other side, that doesn't mean that every police officer is a racist. We know that. We know that, and we ought to be able to judge that. And I'm struggling this year because now we are telling a group of people who put themselves in danger. You know, cops carry guns, you know, let's face it, come out and say that they are gay. Took great courage, and it was a great moment for me to see that in every year in the Gay Pride Parade. And this year, they're being put out. And I understand the thinking, but I think it's wrong thinking. I think oppression does not justify oppression.
Right.
So for this year, I'm struggling with this one, Patty. I'm having a hard time. I don't know about you, but I am. But I love Pride Month. I love to be able to put the flag out in front of my church. This church is 133 years old. And 2 years ago, I had an 80-year-old woman march the gay pride flag out onto the front lawn. You think she was so proud to do that and planted that on the lawn. And of course, there were some people who were hopping over the hedge to get away from us. You know, I'll never come back here. You've turned the church gay. Well, I said, well, that's ridiculous. You know, send me some wool. I'll knit you a gay church, you know. But
Reverend Melissa, your church, having gone to the one service there when you invited Dress for Success in, I was amazed at the fact that you had Jewish people, Muslim people, all people were there in the congregation because, and the song was, I think, welcome all, or
all are welcome. Right.
all well. It was so beautiful. I was like, this is the point of it all. And so you've done a good job with that. And, you know, thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you. But they're not all happy. Let me tell you, some of them are not happy, but that's the way it is. This is how we're going to be. And we try not to, we don't really care what you believe. That's not my business. What we do is we watch your feet. And that's what I love about the Gay Pride Parade. You step out if you step out and you walk forward into the community and you love your brother and sister, no matter who they are, and you take care of them, that's the difference. So,
Amen.
so there's the answer to how I feel about Gay Pride, Willa. But I'm having a little struggle this year, so pray for me.
All right, Pride Month for you, Patty?
I've never been to a gay pride parade ever. I just, it isn't in my thing. I struggle with what we call heritage months. I am gay 12 months out of the year. I'm not gay 1 month out of the year. I think we have commercialized it a little bit too much. I see a rainbow flag on everything. I mean, on everything. And I know that there is not acceptance in intent behind every gay flag that I see. Having said all of that, I do think that we need to bring these moments of time, whether it's a day, whether it's a week, whether it's a month, so that we can raise the level of awareness, raise the level of education, give the opportunity to have conversations and discussion, talk about the issues, the problems, and the concerns that we face, not just in our community, but in the larger community. So while, you know, I'm not like a, you know, marching, go out there person, I am a person who likes to celebrate and not hide. And June, as well as October, by the way. So October in particular in Florida and some other states, there's National Coming Out Day, and some people follow that. So I just try to live my whole self every day, 24/7.
That's like Black History Month and Women's History Month. And
I mean, Willie, you are Black 365 days out of the year.
last time I checked, yeah.
Last time you checked, me too.
Yeah. Parades are fun. Next year I might take you.
Okay.
Lynn?
I am also like Patty. I've never been to a parade, but I've certainly seen them on TV. I think that's something that I need to do. I'd love to go with you next year, Willa. That would be fun.
Field trip.
I had a ball down in the village. Had an absolute ball. All right.
I'll be happy to take you. No worries.
Okay. We'll make it a day, an outing. All of us together, right?
Yep.
All right, Kev. Take it up.
I love it. So I just want to open it up to questions. If anyone in the audience has anything else you'd like to add or ask. Anybody? Carolyn?
Hey, it's Caroline. Hi, I'm the board president, Caroline. I just wanted to thank you because I'm raising Gen Z on the younger side of it, and it is teenagers, and the advice of listening, because it is such a broad, it's not boxes anymore. It's not, are you this, are you that? It really is, and listening to that, and I do listen a lot. And in my head, I think, wow, that's a lot of choice. It's great. But I keep it to myself, and I'm like, how do you navigate that? You guys are young. But I think that's part of what you're saying, which is that's part of the journey. And it's that self-discovery, I guess. And just having somebody that maybe you can share where you are in that journey, particularly when you're young. I think it's great. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I just, you bring up a really good point. We do not live in a binary world. You are not either one thing or the other. You are many things, and you're not white or black. You can be both. You can be white and black and gay and that's what it is going through life on that journey and discovering which of those things you embrace and resonate with you. And the more people listen and the more people open up their homes and their hearts and enable and allow those conversations of exploration to happen, but you do that by remaining curious. I think that the better we are going to leave the next generation like the last generation left it for us, and we just have to pay it forward.
Yeah, and we do this a lot at Dress for Success, is find a space where particularly women can feel safe and able to be vulnerable, I guess, and share. So it sounds like that advice, as you say, fits for all of these discussions. So thank you.
Anybody else have anything to add?
So So I would really love your perspective on something, but first I really do want to thank you all for just your incredible sharing, but your own personal stories. I know that that's not always easy. And so I've so enjoyed the openness of the conversation, the authenticity with which you've all appeared. I'm really, really appreciative, but I really would love your perspective on something. I know it's 8 o'clock, so I'm trying to be sensitive to time. But for me, all these conversations are about knowledge and about awareness, right? And how do we create that safe space for people to have these kinds of conversations? And so I'll share with you really quickly though. So my career is all in HR. And so about 15 years ago, I had, to this day, the most amazing experience of my career. And it also really impacted me personally. So 15 years ago, when it wasn't as popular as it is today, I worked with an individual to transition in the workplace. This person went from male to female. So I'll save you all the details, but I worked with the person for 6 months. It was incredibly eye-opening. It was, I mean, an unbelievable experience for me personally and professionally. So why I share that with you is because to me, that created my, how I approach a lot of these situations, right? Again, it's all with education and knowledge and awareness. And I've had fabulous colleagues in my career where I could go and have that conversation. You talk about queer, where today it's accepted, before it wasn't. So a few years ago, I asked a colleague at work to say, can you please explain that to me? Because it didn't feel like that wasn't right. So, but I had that opportunity. So what I'm feeling now is, Patty, you said there's always an enemy, right? And so that really resonated with me because I feel now that's what we're seeing. Whenever someone does something, whatever it might be, an inappropriate costume, an inappropriate comment, an inappropriate post on social media, I feel like they're attacked, right? And they're accused of being racist or discriminatory versus coming from the perspective of they didn't know any better. How do we create the knowledge and the awareness versus attacking somebody? And in some cases, right, media destroying people's livelihoods, right? So I'd love to get your perspective on that because it troubles me so much. I'd love to get what you, and I'm sorry it's after 8. I
No,
really
I'm
apologize.
more than happy to stay on as long as Will is willing to keep us on the Zoom here and open up the lines. I think you hit a really, really important discussion. Not going into a lot of the why, but I do think that the significant, negative, horrible, disgusting things that are happening out there in the world right now, we finally are seeing them.
Yeah.
I think they've always been there,
Yep.
but now we're seeing them, and it's probably thanks to this thing called the iPhone that everybody's videotaping everything, and so and immediately everybody sees it. I think though, Cindy, you make a really, really good point. There has to be a distinction made between intent to harm and hate and intent, I'm ignorant.
Right.
I will take ignorance all day long because there's no intent to harm or intent to hate. When it is intent to hate and to harm, that's where I think we need to be a little bit. Now we need to be a lot more vigilant and a lot more aggressive in our actions to suppress what's happening.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I think the voices of hate we're seeing more in the year 2020 than probably in my lifetime, to be quite frank with you. I mean, I was born in the, we'll bleep that, right? But what I saw in the 20s, I've never seen in 2020, I've never seen that before in my life.
Yeah.
And so the distinction, though, that you're making between intent to hate and ignorance, ignorance can be handled by education.
Right.
The only thing that I then stop and say is if ignorance happens again and again and again and again with the same person,
totally,
now it's starting to turn into something else.
Yeah.
Right? But if you're on a road of education, if you're on a road to understand, if you are going to seek first out of love, out of support, out of compassion, then I will educate. I mean, this is what we're doing right now. I will educate all day long. I will stand up and talk all day long. So I don't know if that helps you to.
I love that distinction, right? Between hate and ignorance, and I agree with you, right? If it happens continually, then you know there's a bigger issue there. It's not about ignorance. So I really appreciate and I love that distinction, Patty. I do. Thank you so much for that.
Cindy, can I say something? And Patty's exactly right. There's got to be the distinction. It's, and my response to people when they say something really stupid, because it's just foolish and ignorant, I know, I don't say, I could say, well, that's just stupid. Or that's it, and then the conversation is over. I might be thinking that, and when I'm thinking to myself, is Jesus, get in my mouth, hold my tongue, okay? But I was approached from a point of love to say,
Yeah.
now, I know you said that, but do you understand how hurtful that is for me to hear you say that? And that's,
Yeah.
and then to try to have that conversation with them.
Yeah.
And to understand how in heaven's name did you get there?
Yeah.
What brought you to believe that? But there is a distinction. There are people who are hell-bent on hate, and
Totally.
there is to it. And here's what you're asking what you can do, and it has to do whether it's issues of gay and lesbian, racial, ethnicity, whatever the issue is, when you hear it, to say something and practice in your head, to what am I going to say when I hear it? And because sometimes you're so busy in your head trying to respond, how do I say this? And then the conversation's over. And to come up with, have your answer, to say, I find that comment hard to deal with because it's hurtful to other people. Something like that, and just say it, put it out there. It might open a conversation. It may embolden the people next to you to say something, but it'll surely, if they've got half a brain in their head, will shut them up.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
Thank you.
sometimes I just want you to stop spewing ugly. Just stop. You
Yeah.
can stop. I'm going to help you stop.
Yeah.
And it's and it's hard. I mean, you're a cocktail party and people makes a joke and everybody's laughing and it's wrong, right? And you want to say something because it's wrong, but you don't know how to do it, and you're afraid what's going to happen. You're going to out yourself to say, oh, I'm different from you. I don't believe that. And that's where the courage comes. And you've got to decide. And if you miss your chance, don't beat yourself up. It'll come up again. And when it comes up again, be ready. Be ready to say, I didn't do it this time, but I'll do it next time. I'll be ready.
Yeah.
It's really what you can do. It's the phone media's killed us. It's objectified everything. And it's really, and look at us, we're having a personal conversation, and you could be in Timbuktu. I don't know where you are, but we're managing to have a personal conversation. And to me, this is the difference. And you have to say it. And, it's tough. Carolyn, you're the head of this organization. You have to be as politic and as smooth as they can be. Right? You have to.
And other things.
And other things, right? You got to be smooth. And there's times when you want to say things and what am I going to do here? You're going to have to pick your fights, but pick a fight somewhere. And I don't mean pick a fight, but I mean choose to speak the truth somewhere and at some time. I can't say that enough.
I'm really proud of this organization because Caroline has been so supportive and really is leading our organization down this path where we're having these conversations here. We're having these conversations with the board. We're having so many opportunities to learn and talk and call things out. And I feel like we're taking the organization to a new place that is going to be more inclusive and understanding of our whole community. And that for me personally is very fulfilling. It's not just a job. This is changing lives. So, and mine included. So I thank you for that, Caroline.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So I know, and personally my family, I have people who had that struggle of announcing to their parents that they were different and what their struggles were. Unfortunately, some of them had that pain of, attempted suicide. So that was very painful. I have friends and professional coworkers who had children who came out. My question is, and if there is something that we can drop, is there counseling that specifically deals with either the parent's pain or the children's pain that is available? Because that's something I'm not aware of. I've seen all of these and they've all kind of muddled through their own pain and process. And I speak to them and you could still, even though they say, oh, it's wonderful, I myself know that they're still going through that struggle. I actually have a cousin who has 2 children, male and female. Both of them are gay, and the female has a son who's gay. So she has to be going through some kind of, and they just kind of look the other way. And it's sad, because you need something to get through it. The children are very happy, but she's definitely struggling.
Yes, so there's an organization based out of New York called the Trevor Project.
Trevor,
The
T-E-R-V.
Trevor, I'm going to put it in the
Oh,
chat.
okay.
The Trevor Project that's specifically devoted to young, gay, lesbian, the whole
Plus.
group of
Thank you.
people. They have like a hotline for youth who may be really struggling or in a really bad place. And it's a excellent organization. I just heard a little bit about it recently, or I know somebody who employed there. So that might be a good resource, definitely.
I've heard of the Trevor Project. It's a fantastic organization. I would also recommend PFLAG, Parents and Friends of Lesbian and Gay. They've been
yeah.
around forever. There's a huge following, in particular in Bergen County.
Yep.
Remarkable people. And they have built a community themselves, and it's a great support group.
Yeah, I'm a member of PFLAG, and I had joined PFLAG many years ago when my family member came out and found the conversations and the education so important.
It is a family affair, as Reverend Melissa and Lynn both shared. It's a family affair. When you come out, your whole family comes with you.
Yep.
Again, the burden, but that's what happens.
Mhm.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Anyone have anything to add or any other questions? Okay. I can't thank you all enough. I learned a lot tonight and I realized just how much more I need to learn. And as those of you who have been on the chats in the past, I tease Willa because she always sends me so many things to read. But now I'm on this journey and there's a lot more to read. And I think the more we know, the better we can be and the better that we are to serve. And I thank you for sharing your stories because it's helped all of us tonight, I know. I guess that's it for tonight. This is the last session we have until September. So I will miss everybody, but I promise we'll come back strong and we'll have a good session when we come back.
We've got a hand up.
Hand up.
Denise, you got your hand up?
Oh, she's clapping.
Laughing.
Oh, that's okay. All right.
Thank you, everyone. Have a
Bye, everyone. Great to meet you all.
Good night.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful evening, everyone. Thank
Yep.
you so much.
good night, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
That was awesome sauce.